Now, if you were unlucky enough to tune into the proceedings at the Glasgow Climate Summit, my commiserations to you, you would have witnessed activist after activist loudly proclaim the death of fossil fuels. And while a push to bind countries to a commitment to quote-unquote phase out coal fizzled out, the final text of the COP26 declaration did contain a pledge to phase down the use of coal, whatever that means. Well, fast forward 3 months, and the exact opposite is happening. New analysis from S&P Global shows demand for all fossil fuels will grow this year, with carbon emissions set to hit record levels. Well, for his reaction, I'm joined from Gladstone by Nationals Senator Matt Canavan. Welcome to the show, mate.
G'day, mate. How are you? Great to be with you. Happy New Year.
Very well, Happy New Year. Now, Senator, how wrong they all were. Oh, we're going to get rid of coal, we'll go to wind and, solar and all this sort of business. It's going through the roof. What's going on?
Well, the truth is that Glasgow was a huge win for the coal, oil and gas industries because, yes, beforehand there were a lot of people saying we're going to kill coal at this conference. It's all going to be over. But by the end of it, it literally ended in tears. With the conference chair crying at the end because India and China had said, no, we're not going to do that. We're going to keep using coal and oil and gas because they wanted to develop their economies. Now, blind Freddie could really see that was always going to be the outcome, whether it was something that was said at Glasgow or done afterwards. It was always going to be the outcome that these poorer countries like China and India are going to prioritise their own economic development over the utopian dreams of some of us in the West. Now, we've got a choice here, though. We've got a choice. We can either partner with countries like India and help supply their future energy needs, or we can take a step back and close down our mines, close down a lot of the jobs here in Gladstone where I am, and let countries like Russia come in and fill the breach, because that's what's happening. Russia are building rail lines to India, to China, and if we want to let Russia become the partner of choice to supply energy to new and emerging countries, okay, do exactly what we were trying to do in Glasgow, or what a lot of Western countries were in Glasgow, do that. But I don't think we should do that. I think we should supply the high-quality Australian resources to these growing nations, because we should be partnering more with countries like India, becoming closer to them, developing our business relationships, and keeping them in the sphere of influence that generally supports the free and open and fair trade among the world's nations.
Well, it just shows up all the hot air that comes out of these people at, COP26. They'll fly there in private jets and whatever and spew out emissions into the atmosphere, then go there and carry on about how we have to reduce our emissions. I mean, it's all talk, no action. No one is actually doing it. What is the point of having these things like COP and all these other outfits that talk ad nauseum, doom and gloom, the world's going to blow up, when no one seems to actually take any notice when the rubber hits the road?
Well, I slightly disagree there. I do think we always need a laugh at times, and I thought COP or Glasgow there last year was the greatest comedy on TV all of 2021, and particularly these times, right? We absolutely need to have a laugh during this global pandemic and all the frustrations that go with that. And it is unfortunate though that the woke Western countries embarrass themselves on the world stage with this pantomime that goes on at these conferences every few years. It is quite embarrassing. So it is funny. It's a bit comical, but it is also embarrassing because I could understand why Xi Jinping didn't bother going to Glasgow, because I don't know how he would have been able to keep a straight face. To be honest, he'd just be laughing all the way to the bank where countries are doing this to themselves that he wants to clearly compete with. And China wants to clearly put themselves back in the preeminent position. And we are only helping them by becoming dependent on unreliable power while not using our own power sources here. So as I say, we should be exporting our energy resources, and that's happening at record amounts at the moment, record amounts of coal, record amounts of gas going overseas. That's great for areas like Gladstone, and I and members of the Liberal National Party will defend these jobs to the hilt. But we should also be using these natural resources for our own development too. To take one example, this year, 2022, it's a happy new year, but it's not so happy for those people who rely on fertiliser to grow food, who rely on urea or AdBlue to power trucks, because this year will mark the last time where we will produce urea in Australia. The last urea manufacturing plant is due to shut in Brisbane, just south of here. And that is because we're not developing the oil and gas resources that go in to make urea. You can't make urea from hydrogen or from solar or from wind. It comes from natural gas, which is a product of oil and gas production. And because we're not exploring and haven't developed new oil and gas basins to replace the Bass Strait, we are losing our last urea plant, which goes into our food security, and as we can see at the moment, into the way our trucks drive around the country with the use of this product called AdBlue.
As you'd think we'd learnt about the problem of self-sufficiency over the last 2 years, but we never learn anything. Now, I want to turn to another issue, but on the same topic, basically. A small group of graziers from Smoky Creek, which is north of Biloela, have banded together to stop a 3,000-hectare solar power station being built on their front doorstep. You've got this Sydney-based company, Edify. They want to cover more than half of that area with solar panels. Now, Senator, these graziers aren't having a bar of it. Why should prime agricultural land be blanketed with solar panels?
Well, it's crazy. It shouldn't be. Obviously, we should keep that land, that precious land we have in our country for food production to make sure that we can be self-sufficient. As you say, this is a related topic. We want to be self-sufficient in growing food. It shouldn't be a place where we put large mirrors imported from China on top of it. Now, I've been out to this. I've been out to Smoky Creek, and in fairness, some of the 3,000 hectare area is not black soil, prime agricultural land, but some of it is. And the real issue here is there hasn't been a proper process that these projects have to go through to evaluate their risks. If you wanted to plant a 3,000 hectare sorghum farm in this area, at Smoky Creek, out in central Queensland, you would need to get not just state government approval, you'd have to go to federal government approval because it's in the Great Barrier Reef catchment area. But the way the state government has designed laws here in Queensland is that they have given the right to approve these major projects to local councils without any major assessment of their broader impact across the issues like the Great Barrier Reef or water flows across this very fertile agricultural basin. Now, fortunately, myself and people like Colin Boyce, who I'm here with tonight, the LNP candidate for Flynn, and member for Callide, he's the state member for this area at the moment. Colin Boyce has been taking this up actively. He got me out there a few months ago, and we said that this should be referred to the federal government authorities to look at this issue, and that's happened since. So at least these people will have a case to put, because I'm all for development. I'm not for regulation, but I don't think we should have double standards where somehow renewable projects get off scot-free, but farms just can't be built basically in the Great Barrier Reef catchment area. And that's not just hypothetical. We had a 2,000 hectare farm development in the Great Barrier Reef catchment area knocked back by federal bureaucrats last year. It was ridiculous. But as I say, renewable projects get a totally different standard applied to them.
Of course they do. And I mean, you've also made the point ad nauseum that the jobs benefit for renewable energy is overstated. And so interestingly, this proposal would create more than 300 jobs during construction, but it only leaves a handful of permanent jobs afterwards. I mean, this is part of the problem of renewable energy, isn't it?
Well, renewable energy is a sugar hit. It does provide an instantaneous boost. So like having a pack of snakes alive, you feel great in the 15 minutes after it. But you go into a pretty big downer, a sugar downer, in the hours afterwards. And that's what happens with renewable projects. You have coal mines, you have coal-fired power stations, gas fields that employ thousands of people. If you drive past a solar farm, drive past a wind farm, you don't see too many people hanging around. You don't see too many birds around a wind farm, I should say, either. They don't last too long. And so they're not big job drivers. They're not big job producers. And keep in mind, all these solar panels, almost all of the wind turbines now, are made overseas, predominantly in China. Predominantly, often in the repressed region of the concentration camps of Xinjiang in China by the oppressed Uyghur peoples. This is an outrage, and I'm not against renewable energy. I think we should be investing in it. I think it has its place within our energy system in a sensible way. But I don't think we should be relying or importing all of these panels from China. Why don't we make some here in Australia? Why don't we require a certain amount of Australian content in these solar farms and wind turbines? And certainly why we should be banning anything that comes out of the Xinjiang province while ever this oppression continues to occur there for the Uyghur people.
To right, Matt Canavan, looks like you're somewhere you can go and get a drink, so go and have a pint for me. Thanks for joining me on the show tonight, mate.
Will do. Thanks, mate. Have a good night.